Thank you, Madam Chair. A few questions I have. First off, the DCJS will determine the reporting requirements, correct? For Part
Yes.
RR of the use of force?
Yeah, I really wanted
Is that right?
Yes.
Right. And the purpose is to report this reporting requirement. The purpose is to report to the public what use of force is done where, correct?
Well, it's not all, the purpose is not only for the public to see, but the purpose is also to be able to look at this data, to be able to determine if there are patterns that are happening, if there's some action that needs to be taken.
Correct. In certain geographic areas or precincts. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
If certain
And then
communities are impacted disproportionately, yes.
Absolutely. And this is ultimately because we want to keep our communities safe. Is that right?
Of course, yes.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. On the bill?
On the bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, Part RR, regarding the use of force, additional reporting requirements, does quite the opposite. What we're in fact doing is misleading the public and unfortunately burdening our law enforcement. So what do I mean by that? Well, right now we have specifically, I represent the portions of Nassau and Suffolk County. And right now, approximately 370 to 400 officers patrol on any given day the geographic area. Now, right now as it stands, they have these use of force reporting requirements. And in Part RR, it now seeks to expand beyond the scope of use of force and now also adds in brandishing or displaying of either certain weapons, tasers, handguns, etc. For me, that's problematic. Why? Because ultimately what we want to do is keep our community safe. And when we have expansive, broad reporting requirements that will now take our officers off the streets and behind the desks to now, at any given moment, any point that they brandish a handgun, that they brandish a baton, that they display a pepper spray, or perhaps even brandish a taser, they now have to report on this. What is the reporting requirements? That's description of events, the age, the sex, the race of all persons engaged in this conduct. And now these officers now have to find out and scout those individuals that to meet these reporting requirements. For me, that's just nonsense. What we need is our officers out there defending our communities, defending our families, defending our children. That's what's important to me. And that's what I care about, ensuring that Long Island still has that. And ultimately, when you look at it, if DCJS is the ones that are actually determining these reporting requirements, then why even codify this language in the first place? Food for thought in that respect. If we're going to be bulking in our responsibility as legislators to determine the exact language, then why are we passing the baton off to DCJS to do? Meanwhile, our law enforcement sits in limbo looking at this bill, this language, questioning, what is this going to mean for us? What will that mean for our day in and day out, the men and women that are protecting our communities, what they're going to have to do? Now, for me, I want to be a representative that actually understands what these officers are going through. And that's why just several weeks ago, I decided on a weekend to actually go and be engaged in a ride-along to see what the officers actually go through. And at any given moment, flash back with me, if you will, to a Saturday night, it's cold, it's dark, in communities that are questionable. But the men and women, they go out there, and I was right alongside with them to see exactly what they were going through. And at any given moment, that could be their last. So they have to go up to any situation with the caution of what could happen to them. And that means having a weapon prepared just in case they encounter a situation that may ultimately be either harmful or, God willing, fatal. We can't have that. So now at those moments when officers say approach a home or approach a scene and they have their baton or they have their weapon or even a taser, which mind you in certain situations can carry a flashlight alongside of it, and they simply had for visual aids. And now at that moment, they had those tasers out, now it's a reporting requirement they have thereafter that situation. But they go up and approach the situations not knowing. So those moments when they brandish or display these items, right there, you just triggered this reporting requirement. For me, That's nonsensical. I want to push forward common sense legislation that ultimately provides for the safety of our communities while achieving the very purpose of safety. This legislation does not do that. I urge my colleagues to vote in the negative, and I will be doing such. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.